We are live.
We are live.
Okay, so let's go. Всем привет. Снова в прямом эфире DMS Talks от Школы креативных коммуникаций Disrupt Marketing School. И с нами сегодня Мортен Грубак из далекой Дании, исполнительный креативный директор агентства Virtue, созданного медиахолдингом Vice, который управляет несколькими подразделениями в Северной Европе и делает это очень успешно. Для тех, кто не в курсе, в прошлом году, в 2019 году, Мортен заполучил 8 каннских львов, в том числе и Гран-при, и даже стеклянного льва, насколько я помню. И это все из двух кейсов: Address the Future и Q Genderless Voice. И сегодня мы о них поговорим, конечно же. Ну что же, начнем нашу встречу. Опять перехожу на английский. Hi, Morten. How are you today?
I'm good, thank you. And welcome to Copenhagen.
Oh, that's nice. I'm in Copenhagen.
Yeah, you in Copenhagen.
I can travel like this.
Yeah. And it's actually a good day. It's really sunny outside. It feels like the summer is actually arriving to Copenhagen, like today. So I'm in a good mood.
Actually, is it possible to? Can you walk us around the room just to show the view from the window? Can you do that?
I can unplug a little bit, and you can see like how. 1 second. Are you following me here?
Yeah.
So this is how Copenhagen looks from where I'm living. I live next to a big church, so it's at some point it's gonna start to ring, and you will not be able to hear anything. But yeah, this is how Copenhagen looks from where I'm living.
It's a fancy region.
Yeah, it's kind of like the old part of Copenhagen. Copenhagen is an old city, so yeah, it's kind of like has a lot of older buildings, so it's nice. It's nice. I like being in
I see a dog. Hi, doggy.
Yeah. It's a Jack Russell, and I adopted her a few years ago. So she's an old lady actually. She's nice.
She's shy, I think.
Yeah, it's nice to actually have a pet during Corona. I think also seeing like all the sites with the pet market has just gone up crazily, right? It's almost impossible to get a cat or dog during these times because everybody just needs something that can kind of like keep them happy and motivated while being home, right?
Well, yeah, it's not only for home reasons. In Russia, for example, you were able to walk outside of your home just to walk with your dog, which means you rent a dog to have some fun on the streets.
Yeah, but I actually also think like I've been really using it a lot because during this lockdown, and the only way to actually just get some air is actually walking your dog, and it gives you a purpose to actually to walk out, right?
Well, yeah. It's not the only way, but it's one of the perfect way to spend some time with your dog right now.
Yeah, it is. I really enjoyed having it. It's been, and I actually get a new connection with it because normally like like it's a normal work day, like she just stays at home, and now I spend 24/7 with it, and it's kind of like it's a good thing.
We're connecting again. So happy.
Yeah. Cheers.
So tell us a little bit about your usual day during this quarantine. I know that in Sweden, right next to Denmark, there is no like quarantine at all. So how do you guys, like neighbors, feel about it?
Yeah, it's been a little bit weird because like in Scandinavia, which of course counts Norway and Finland as well, it's been different strategies on how to actually be challenged with this coronavirus. And I think Denmark made a complete lockdown and kind of like follow the same things as you guys are going through in Russia and the UK and all that. But Sweden kind of kept everything open. And we were looking at it and thinking a little bit like, should we just have done the same, and how's the number actually going to rise? But I think they actually stayed the same as they were in Denmark. So we probably shouldn't have closed down as hard as we did. But it also created a lot of like Corona tourism, which has been really, really funny to see. And a lot of Danes as well had also like gone to Corona. Sorry, 1 second, I just had my girlfriend coming home.
Yeah, sure. Let's meet all of your family.
Yeah, exactly. Sorry for that. No, so it's been funny to see how actually Corona tourism has become a thing. And we also seeing at least a lot of foreigners actually traveling to Sweden and actually stay there for the whole time of lockdown to make sure that they can still have a life that is like on restaurants and shopping and all that stuff. yeah, it's a thing. Corona traveling is a thing.
Well, I actually thought maybe I should spend Corona somewhere else, not in Russia.
Yeah, yes and no. I think it's we learned a lot from this, right?
Well, yeah, everybody will come out with their own learnings.
Yeah, I totally agree. I totally agree.
How do you guys adjust to the COVID reality? I mean, you with your girlfriend and you in your creative team, how do you changing these things or making special rules?
I think it's all about we never tried this before, so we're just learning day by day. And I think this time has really shown how everybody just needs to adjust all the time and kind of like figure out the way to be better, and also like how do we connect on a human level. Of course, the revolution of Zoom has been really interesting to kind of like take a part of. At the same time, it's been really wearing me down in a way, like, you know, like staying all day on a call and kind of like almost not being able to just get a bite of lunch or just go to the bathroom has almost been impossible because it's just been back to back. But again, like it's also been weird that the only way that you can actually connect is through this kind of like a digital world. At the same time, it learned us a lot as well. Like I think we at Virtue has always seen ourselves as a borderless agency. And that means that we're not like tied to where we are placed in the world, but we're always trying to work across borders. So meaning if we have a client, we even before the coronavirus, we were still setting the team based on skills and knowledge for the specific pitch, but just from different cities. So I think we've been good at working over these digital channels already, but I think this situation has really like put us to a test. Is this really good for business? Is it good for creativity? Is it good for the company as well? And I think we learned seriously a lot about this during the last couple of months.
Can you share some of these learnings?
I think, yeah, for sure. I think we're still like, instead of like trying to put ourselves in a position of a company that knows all, we're still trying to position ourselves as a company that wants to learn all. So we're still figuring out ways to kind of like make it better. I think what we have a normal creative process that we normally work by, which is of course filled with a few check-ins and kind of like and rehearsal before the pitch meeting. But I guess again, how we normally were working before was kind of like we agreed to what had to be done, then we closed down, and then we assemble again after a day or two. But that doesn't work because like then there's too much like we have to go back if we're not happy with where we are, or like things are not as we agreed to and stuff like that. So it's actually been better to actually keep the line open and work while just being in each other's place, but without having to speak sometimes. And like, you know, like instead of like just like, this is what we do, and then we close down, and then we see each other again in 2 days. We actually challenge ourselves to be open and keep the line open, and just like you would do if you were like in a normal brainstorm or whatever, right? So I think that's the learning, that you need to kind of like give a little bit more of yourself, and actually also being open to not just the awkwardness that can be on these kind of calls. Challenge them a little bit. It's okay that that's nobody speaking. It's okay that somebody forgets to turn on the microphone. It's okay that it's like, you know, like there's gonna be 5 minutes where nobody talks. I think to think.
Yeah. Does the time that you spend like working day, has it increased, or you just staying normal hours as usual?
I'd say it's increased extremely much. Actually, right now, I'm using the phrase of like, I'm really looking forward to going back to the office, because then I have to work less. So it's kind of like, you know, it's been extreme. Like I just phrased before, like my calendar is just back to back from when I wake to almost like midnight. I can't really remember I ever worked so hard as the last 3 months. It's been really, really hard, to be honest, as well. Again, because communication has been, you know, like it's put into a schedule, you know, like something that could be like 5 minutes by the coffee machine is now taking a half an hour on a call. So I think it has been hard. People have worked hard, and which has been good, but also like been extremely challenged for your mental health, right?
Yeah, I think everybody is on the same track right now. We're just trying, as someone said, just to keep up with the planet, you have to run twice faster. That's what we are trying to do now, but it's not twice, it's like 10 times faster right now.
Yeah, for sure. I totally agree. I think a lot of people, and it's also a weird situation because like we really also have to have focus on the people's mental health as well. Like I think not only are things happening at another speed, not only are we working harder than ever, I think it's also now shown how, you know, like loneliness can affect your work. I think we, as a youth company as well, like we have a lot of young employees and a lot of young creatives, and I feel like a lot of these people maybe doesn't have the biggest apartment in the world. Maybe they have only a room, and being in a lockdown there and just be there for 3 months and just only seeing people on a call is really doing something to people's mental health. So I think we've been doing a lot to actually keep a focus on actually at least for our younger employees, to make sure that they didn't end out with any kind of like scars from this lockdown.
Can you already feel the changes in the creative process? Like, for how does it affect people? Does it make them more creative or less creative because of the stress? What happens to this youth creativity?
Yeah, I think it's I think people are more creative now. I think, but it's not because of the way that we are working for sure. I think it's more about like an expression of what happens in the world, that the only way we feel like we can fight whatever is around us is through creativity. I feel like we were all like in shock when it all happened, and kind of like when we had to close down. And then once that shock kind of like was a little bit out of the system and we were left almost alone and with this new reality, I think what got ignited was the excitement around creativity. People started like wanted to create solution ideas around this topic and to kind of like give back to society and the world with new ideas. So I think it really ignited a whole new wave of creativity, which I'm super stoked and excited around. I think we as a company have never seen so many ideas just like get out of every corner of the company. And it's not only creatives, it's like from every aspect of the agency, people are pitching in. We have like twice a week open kind of like calls where we are pitching from all our 26 offices in this kind of like open forum. And then we are just as a collective group are selecting what we feel is matter and kind of like could be funny to work on it. And it doesn't have to be Corona related. It just have to kind of like be a great idea that we feel is great to execute. So I think creativity is on a rise and it's really on the move as well. I'm really happy about what this has started in a way.
Can you maybe share one of the ideas that came to your head during these times, something that might be helpful like right now?
I think again, as much as like great idea happens in this point of time, it's going to take some time to execute them because we need to execute them differently than we've done before. Often we have to sell them into clients as well, and the clients has also been a little bit more like on a hold to kind of like take on new projects. So I think as well, like as much as we have new ideas, it's been like the lead time to actually producing them has been a little bit longer. And I think so as much as we have a lot of stuff on the drawing board, but they're all in production, so I can't really give them away now. But like, if stay tuned, I'll definitely show them off, or you will see them once they're out. But I think we have so many great things in motion that I'm just looking forward to. And some of them are Corona focused, and some of them are like just great ideas that just want to challenge the world. I think one thing that we are talking a lot about as well is also like insights, because the greatest work always starts from a great insight. And I think one of the bigger insights that I can share that we're working on now on one of the calls, and something that I think a lot of us has been discussing a lot, is on TikTok. I think a lot of people have seen the the note that got leaked from TikTok, which kind of states that like in the general feed that you have on TikTok, they will not like promote people who are like overweight, people who have a less fancy home, people who lived in certain areas that wasn't like in the fancy places of the world. So the whole thing about like curating based on your lifestyle and your life, kind of like your class in life. And of course, that's something that really kind of sets us off as creators, because we in some kind of like way feels like this feels wrong. So just because you maybe 10 kilos to the good side, if you're a really good dancer, why shouldn't you be able to be promoted there? When I open my TikTok myself, I can see it's basically full of like picture perfect people who's just performing stuff. And I wasn't aware to that note got released. And I think we as a group want to make something that actually challenges the perception. And I think that's one of the things that we're working on now, for instance.
That's interesting insight. I don't use TikTok, so I haven't even known that they have this policy and these rules. I should check it.
Yeah, I think TikTok is really interesting due to its rise. It's kind of like it's also learned us a lot, because TikTok is kind of like showing us that the last social media platform hasn't been born yet. I think it's sometimes like going back 5 years, like Facebook was so great that everybody was talking about as being like, you were not a citizen anymore in your country, you were a citizen in Facebook. And I think like the decrease of people's spend time on Facebook and how everybody's logging off and leaving that platform has just shown that like we're not captured in whatever platform we are now. Things will come in the future, and it will change. The formats will change.
Of course. I'd like to think about what's going to happen next. What will be the next Facebook or the next Insta or anything else.
And if you know it, Kav, please call me. I want to be a part of that startup.
Okay, will do. Tell me, please, what do you miss the most now when you are closed at home, let's say, and you cannot go out as much as usual? What is the thing that you are really like craving for?
I think there's two things that I really miss, and I think the first thing is definitely the change during a month, like the events and the specific kind of like things that makes a little bit of a difference in the month, because like working from home kind of like becomes this like almost like a wheel that you just in all the time. For instance, this month have just like gone so fast without I even notice it, and it doesn't, when I recall it, it doesn't feel like that there was that much happening. So it feels like a little bit, I guess, how people are seeing time in prison in a way, like how everything just blurs together. I'm used to traveling a lot in my work. It's like almost every week. So I can like that when I normally look back at a month, that I really feel like I seen a lot. I met a lot and kind of like a lot of people and like discovered a lot. But doing this lockdown, it's just been getting into one blur. I never experienced, and especially this month with May, like which is now almost like done. It's kind of like closes the springtime in our industry, and kind of like normally it's just full of events and great like things that people are attending and a lot of inspiration, right? So that's for sure one thing I miss. The other thing that I miss a lot is, of course, people, like real people. I think, yeah, I think when I have to boil everything down to why I am in this industry, is because this industry is full of interesting people, like yourself, for instance. Like it's nice that kind of like like there are these people who has a story, these people who has a different view on the world, these people who are open with conversation and all that stuff. And I think like not being able to see them and share my thoughts of what's happening has been really, really hard. And I think not being around creative people and it's been hard. I think that's what I miss. I miss getting back and just like having regular talks with people, right?
Well, yeah, I can imagine. I mean, I think what I miss the most is traveling, but traveling to the events where you can meet different people. I'm thinking about Cannes Lions that were supposed to happen in June, and it's breaking my heart. Like, yeah, each year you come there and you just get so inspired with everybody, with all the things that's happening there, and now you don't even know when you will be able to go anywhere.
Yeah.
So the thing I'm missing the most.
But I also think, like, again, the world will change, right? And as much I'm only going to say new normal one time in this call, because then I will never say it again. But it's kind of like the traveling situation which we had before was also insane, right? Like, it was like, for me, going to London was cheaper than actually buying a sandwich sometimes, right? And it's wrong in a way, right? It's kind of like that's when you know that it's becoming too much. And I think while we will never see that happening again, like that a whole team travels 3 hours in a plane to go to one meeting, I think that's something that feels like only being in the old world. So I see how we all been trained now for presenting through these calls. I think that's something that we will see happening going ahead as well. Like, we would never, I think this has been really, really good for climate change as well. And I think that's a positive thing that came out of all of this. Kind of like, we trained ourselves to be present and kind of like give something of ourselves during these video calls.
Yeah.
And we don't have to be there. We don't have to fly there to actually make a good presentation.
Well, fingers crossed it's gonna stay the same and we will see the changes that we brought to the climate and to the nature that we were not taking care much about.
Yeah, for sure. I totally agree.
Well, speaking about changes, I have one question that I got from the audience.
Mm-hmm.
Have the winning the 8 Cannes Lions last year, has it changed you? How do you think?
I think it hasn't changed me as a person, but it has changed my skill set. I think winning 8 lions in one year kind of like teach you a lot. And I think, again, to be able to create success, you need to understand what success looks like. And I think that's a really important lesson, because if you don't know how it's looking, it's really, really hard to aim at. So I think understanding what you have to do to kind of like achieve that is something that you can take on to almost every project that you're going ahead for. So I think, again, the biggest learning and the biggest change has been like, I now know what it costs to actually create a success. And I think that's been great. And I think, of course, for us as an agency, it's been important as well. Like, we we never been like really hungry for awards. At the same time, we know that's how the industry works. I think for us, awards is not about the recognition itself. It's also sometimes about like making a pause and kind of like looking back at what we have been doing and celebrating that. Because I think as an agency, when you work, you're constantly in a flow, you're constantly in a jet stream of new projects. And sometimes, like, which is really, really funny. So when with Address the Future, of course, the digital clothing collection, like when that was rewarded, it was almost like a year after it was launched, right? So our head was 100 other places. But I think the recognition that comes through award show really makes us pause and kind of like remember that what we are doing is actually having an effect, and it is actually changing an industry or changing people's perception around fashion and stuff like that. So I think awards are good for actually remember us that we why we're actually doing stuff. So I think
To celebrate to celebrate the creativity of your team, how
yeah
they, because some of people really need this. I mean,
yeah
maybe not like you as an agency, but there are creative directors or someone who is coming to the industry to be celebrated, and for them it's the main adrenaline that they are having.
Yeah, I think for sure. I think it creates a level of competition, which is nice, because we've been trying different strategies. Like one year we said, like, we're not going to enter any awards. Our new strategy of awards is we need to be recognized by the noise we make in society. So meaning when Fast Company writes something about us, it should be our award. Like when whatever, like kind of like Vogue is kind of mentioning us, it's our award. But we don't stop up and celebrate when these things happen. So I think again, like, it's really important that we take that recognition, and that becomes the momentum of actually creating new ideas. And also because what we also need to understand that a lot of these things that happens in these shows are maybe not the most effective things that happens, or the most effective ideas, but what they create is they start an idea in other people's head that then can turn into another idea. So it's kind of like a place where to stress test ideas, or making pilots of ideas, or sharing new ideas for the world, right? So more, instead of like thinking of it as a successful campaign, it's about sharing ideas, and that's what we reward, right? We are rewarding people who have new ideas, bring them to the world, and make something that we can all stand upon, right? Because like nobody just come up with original ideas. We are all a part of, like, something that happens previously, something that make the perfect storm that you then jump onto. It's kind of like it's a combination of many things, but I think awards are important, and especially for our industry still, it is important to celebrate when we do stuff and when we push the boundaries. And it is nice to lift out the individuals that really added a lot of effort into it, because winning 8 Lions doesn't come easy. It's a lot of work, and it's a lot of hours. And normally when I speak with people around this subject, I normally say it's a pretty easy piece of math. The more you put in, the more you get out. So it's kind of like, it's all the people just like feel really casual about it. I think they're just trying to make it feel casual, because the reality is it's never going to be casual to win that many Lions. It's going to be a lot of work. So I think, again, if you want to be at that level, put in the work for sure.
No, of course, you're absolutely right. I cannot agree more about this. Yes. So let's move on a little bit. As long as we're talking about work now, let's talk about work more. So how do you now cheer up your team for the work that you're doing? How do you guys, do you have some team buildings or something like this, online, I don't know, cooking shows, whatever? How is it going?
So we have a lot of check-ins in terms of team check-ins to inspire, and we have our creative meetings that's always been in the books and all that. But I think right now we're really focusing on looking ahead. I think the industry took a hard hit on this, and we've been talking a lot about people have been, or the different networks have been into different structures and restructuring, and kind of you've seen how many layoffs there's been, the bigger agencies kind of cutting off almost hundreds and thousands of people sometimes. And I think the reorganization has also come to our agency. And of course, I think the people we have left is kind of the talents and the superstar of the industry. And I think what we then now need to do is kind of look ahead and kind of look at the future as something that is bright as well, and that has a huge window of opportunities. I actually never experienced such a huge window of opportunities as we have now. So I think that's what we're trying to motivate each other with. But as I stated earlier, also I think our creative team is really on fire when it comes to actually creating great ideas and great works. I think it's more about how do we tame this, almost how do we get to execute a lot of these things? How do we pick all the things that we need that is valid to actually pitch and work from? So again, looking positive again on the future, making sure that we are putting some of these months behind us and take away the good learnings, but then kind of take all the good from that came out of it and just look positive ahead. I think that's what we're doing at the moment. Sure.
That's a good strategy, I think.
Yeah.
How big is your team right now? How many people are you leading?
Yeah, so we are now we are around 35 creatives in our department, and again we also changed a little bit of our strategy to be very heavy at the top as well. So being really senior, having some of the most progressive people in the industry. again, we want to have a really huge variety of people from different backgrounds, different nationality. I think to being able to think global as we do, we mostly work with global clients on global campaigns. I think it's really important that you have like a nice combination of people from all around the world. But as I said, like that's my team. But like what I really, when we really work, it's not my team, because like we are still like sharing resources with the rest of the agency network, meaning that I don't know how many creators we are, but we have like a really nice tool to how to identify and make sure that we have the right people on the right pitches with the right background. For instance, if we are doing an automotive client, then it's really important that we can find the right people with the right skill set to solve that thing. So again, that's just from our side, right?
Yeah. I don't know if you will be able to answer this question, but I would still ask it. Do you have any unusual, let's call it this way, unusual projects or clients right now that you are working with or you are pitching?
No, not right now. I think we were really fortunate to win IKEA as a global client just before we entered COVID. And I think like IKEA has been a huge challenge with giving us a lot of global briefs. And just starting all the way from actually building out their new creative platform has taken a lot of time. And so we are about to execute the first big campaign for them, which is going to be extremely funny. I think that's a little bit where the new reality happens a little bit. Like I think remotely production has been around for quite a while, where you kind of like having a director in another country and then you basically do everything through a screen setup and stuff like that. But the new piece of work we're doing with IKEA is going to be that on steroids. It's going to be the most insane production that's happening in Sweden, while the director and the first AD will be in LA, and everything's just happening digitally. So it's kind of like we have multiple screens that kind of like, and cameras that kind of like just like watch what's happening on the set, so the director can kind of like make the calls and everything. So it's going to be like a global production without people actually being on set. It's really going to be really, really cool sitting here in Copenhagen and being on with the director and kind of like watch the DOPs kind of like work around. So the set will be the people who only have to be there. The rest of it will be directed so I think that's really like, normally in the old world we would have invited the director to come from LA to Stockholm to kind of like make it happen, and now it's just like we're forced to do it this way. And I think that kind of like sets a new standard. I think that's different than what we used to do, right? So I think
I can't wait to see it.
yeah, I hope that we can share some of the behind the scenes a little bit, and also we're constantly learning from that way of the producing as well. We've been doing it in a smaller scale while everything has been happening, but this time is the first time we really make a huge set that is actually working that way. So it's really exciting. But I think again, like other things that have been a little bit unusual has been like the amount of Corona briefs that came in, right? And it's kind of like it's
everybody wants to be somehow involved.
Yeah, and say we're in it together and kind of like we're there for you and all that stuff, right? And I think it's been extremely hard because like a brief that come in 1 week and feels like it's a good opportunity lose relevance the next week, and once it's produced it's totally cliche. So I think like it's been really, really hard to actually kind of like tell clients, no, this is not a good idea to jump on this wagon, like because everybody's like throwing themselves at the same brief. So I think this has been really challenging because like the brief comes pretty early, but before we actually make the creative, have the insight, like making the production, it can be old and the world's gonna laugh at you. So I think it's been really challenging at the same time as, of course, they've been pausing other projects and then they give you a new project. I think that's that's been a hard decision. Like how do you turn down business in doing these time? At the same time, we are their closest advisors and we see ourselves as like consultants and creative consultants in that way. So it's been it's been really weird, like navigating in that, right? Kind of like how do you turn down a good opportunity to make something really compassionate as well, and kind of like create empathy and stuff like that. But it's all about timing, and like the wrong timing can be just as bad as the good one, right? So it's
of course, and it's really hard. I think it's impossibly hard to think of something that would be so outstanding that you would feel that, yeah, you did the right thing. Because lots of decisions, lots of ideas that I've seen were produced for last, let's say, 2 months. They basically look the same, feel the same, and they doesn't even make you, I don't know, that you don't feel compassion to them. You just think like, yeah, the same old, nothing is changing. The only one that I actually liked, it was the Channel 4, which is, I think, UK channel.
Yeah.
We need your butt to stay at home. That was nice.
Yeah, I think again, like I know the guys who produced that, they're also from Denmark, and kind of like some extremely well-talented creatives. I think I like that as well. But I think what we've really seen during this time is how much more action speaks rather than words. I think the people who really want this kind of like way of making notice of themselves is through like actions, direct actions, like not trying to over communicate it, like just make something good for society instead of like trying to tell you that you're there, or like thank you people for doing whatever, right? I think because it becomes shallow, right? I think just a good example here, when I walk around in Copenhagen, we have these huge outdoors that just says thank you on the way of the government, on behalf of the government. So it's kind of like, it feels a little bit like shallow. It's kind of like, so who are you to thank? It's kind of like, I get it, but it just like becomes too much.
And the government is the one administration that can do a lot, actually.
Yeah. I think they are doing a lot though here in Denmark. They're actually doing a really, really good job. I think our prime minister has done like a fantastic job. She's been really human in her way of communicating. I think that she's been extremely transparent. She's been, like all the things that you can be criticized after such a thing, she's actually managed not to be, because like she's been so proactive. And I guess like, again, like showing that she's also see an uncertainty, that she's the kind of like the future leader, which is not like just a typical strong leader, but it's more like a leader that is a human. I think that's really something that inspired me to kind of like in my work as well. It's kind of like, it's better to be a human leader than it is to be a strong leader, and show who you are, and show your insecurity if you are insecure. There's nobody's gaining anything from you just strong-handing people. So I think the Danish government has definitely been doing good during these times. I think that's been nice.
That's because women are good in multitasking.
Yeah, for sure. I 100% agree. I 100% agree.
I wanted to ask you to maybe dive in the creative process that you have in Virtue. How do you, from where do you start, and how it goes, and how it is presented to the client? How, step by step, could you do it?
Yeah, of course. I think our process looks a lot like a lot of other agencies. I think we always, of course, start with strategy. And I think the only difference between us and other agencies is that we have a huge amount of data from our own platform and through Vice and all these things. So we have a thing that's called Vice Voices, which is actually a survey platform that we can actually stress test insights or stress test ideas and stuff like that, so we can get out to our audience pretty quickly. So meaning before we go into a client, we actually know how people are feeling about the different topics, and we're not just like inventing insights, or we're just like making like Google desktop research. So I think that has been definitely our game changer in the industry. Is actually if we have a question, we can have the answer next morning from 5,000 people in the right audience. So I think we tend to, of course, learn a lot from that audience. But normally we of course identify the insight and kind of like build the strategy on top of that. Then we're picking the team, we're setting the right team up. And again, as we are working borderless, we are having conversation with a resource manager that then knows everyone in the network to make sure that the right people gets on the job. And then we have like kickoff meetings, and kind of like the creatives are part of the first strategy review that happens at the kickoff meeting. So they can feedback on the strategy, so it doesn't become like strategy says this and then the creative has to work on top of that. The strategy department has a review round with the creatives as well. So everybody has to kind of like a way to give away their opinions and express their concerns or whatever in these meetings. And then when we are all satisfied with the strategy, we move into the creative phase. And the creative phase is interrupted by 3 check-ins. And we always have a creative director running the projects. And when we are at the final check-in, I will be there as well to make sure that we are benchmarking the work against our values. And I think our values is definitely what makes us different than other agencies as well. Like we pledge to kind of like bring our own opinion into the work. We are not only promoting the client's opinions, we are actually allowing ourselves to bring some of the DNA from Vice, which is like bring your own opinion. So we of course like stress test the ideas about is this something that we feel proud of? Is it something that we can see our own opinion in? Is it something that we would queue up for? Is it like there's a lot of questions we have that we're asking in this last phase. And then we have the last thing, which is like a rehearsal before the meeting. And this is a new thing. We haven't been doing rehearsals before like a year ago. And I remember when we tried to implement that, and the rehearsal is kind of like that old school thing you did back in high school or something like that, where you kind of like made a fake presentation without nobody being there, like actually present to the other people who are in the room. And I feel like that has done to our process is when we are actually going to the final presentation with the client, we are much more prepared. We are much more confident in what we're saying. And the people have like tried to voice what they've been thinking. And that also counts a lot for something. And in that last rehearsal, we have something that's called a pitch doctor. And the pitch doctor is somebody who's just like drops in and plays the client and can be the devil's advocate, like kind of like just go hard at it. Like if there's anything you don't understand, you just put it out there. If there's something you feel like feels shallow or not right, you just go out there. You ask stupid questions. You ask like, have you thought about this being corona safe, for instance? And then you need to be prepared for questions like that. Even though it's not a part of the brief, you just like go at it as you were kind of like just ruthless and just like stress test the presentation that way.
That's interesting. Stress testing is something.
It is. But it is brutal sometimes, because like you can really see how, you know, like doing a piece of creative work is like solving a riddle. So it's kind of like all the things from the insights and the brief and everything is like defragmented puzzle pieces, and then you have to put everything together, or like make sure that it has like a rhyme or flow or poem to it, and then you have to present everything. And as soon as you just take one component out or you add something to it, it's no longer the same, and the picture changed and everything. So I think it is a good way to just be prepared, because there will be questions that you would not expect would be asked, but at the same time, it's always nice when somebody just like asks them, so you know how to answer in a way, right? But there will always be questions that the pitch doctor doesn't ask anyway, so you always get surprised every time we present. So it's but that's more or less how we do it. It's kind of like a great foundation on strategy, making sure that the creatives are part of the strategy review, as well as like the strategy are part of the creative review. And then we always have like a workshop afterwards, like where we evaluate the whole process. And that's really important, that you always have to, even though if it goes really, really good, it's important not just to high five and just like see you later and on to the next thing. I think it's important to again, as I stated earlier, it's important for us to learn from what we do. So kind of like what make this a better process, a more smooth process? How did we end up not working to midnight every night and these kind of things? And again, if it fucks up, then kind of like what happened? Well, how did we end up in this situation where, you know, like, where we kind of like had to make so many overtime hours and stuff like that, right?
Mm-hmm. And how can you describe your let's say activity? Are you more proactive, or you're working strictly on the brief? I mean, if you are asked to create some kind of campaign or idea or something, do you bring something else not on the lists, let's say, or you just work as asked?
Yeah, but we always go in both. I think that's important. Like it shouldn't matter, and we should always try to push the boundaries. And I know this sounds like a lot of bullshit and a lot of cliches, but I think it's an internal attitude and a positivity. I think it's about the smarter you become, you know, like where is the boundaries and how do you actually cross them in a way that doesn't seem like you're insane, right? Everything has to be smart and have to be rooted in something that we believe that it could actually make a change. But we never go in with like a strategy of like having one bold idea and one that is a little bit in the middle and then one that is safe. Because if you present something that feels safe, they will go for it. And I think it's important that the best meetings that we've been having is like when we know that the client are a little bit like, fuck, this is insane, but at the same time, this is really intriguing because this is definitely a whole new thing that we haven't thought about, or this is a different way to look at the problem that we haven't seen before. So I think when we have that reaction from a client and not just like, we're buying this, then I think we're in a good space. I think we're in a really, really good spot whenever we kind of like bring something to the table that makes them go silent in a positive way, of course, in some way where it's kind of like, okay, we haven't thought of that. And I think, again, it matters, like, because sometimes when you're selling an idea, if you just do it just to sell it, you have to remember, you have to work on it for the next 6 months. So if it's not exciting, like your job is going to be not exciting for the next 6 months. So I think it's also some kind of like, you know, like, and we are honest with our clients. And if I can tell that I'm presenting something in front of a client and they don't feel like excited around it, but still like, yeah, let's do it. I think it's better just to ask the question openly and saying like, if you don't feel excited about it, we need to figure out something else, because like we are doing this as a partnership. And if we're not excited for both parties, like it's not going to be a good process. We need to be feeling like this is what makes work fun. And this is what makes it great to be in this industry and kind of like execute this project, because we feel excited about what is going to be the outcome of this and being a part of this journey as well. So working on something that is boring for 6 months is kind of like what drives you sour and kind of like ruining people in this industry, right? On both sides. On both sides.
If you think about it, if you're not excited and the client is not excited, there is a pretty good chance that the audience won't be excited too.
But you know, like sometimes you can just be so smart that you know it's gonna work because it's tactical. And again, like, you know, like tactical things still works, but it's just like, do we feel it's exciting to actually do these things? And I think even tactical work can be exciting if you have a creative idea to it. I think it's just about being honest and not being afraid. Like we never serve our clients as they are the boss because they are asking us to do it. We want to go there in equally and kind of like look them in the eye and say like, we are here to make this a great campaign together with you guys, and kind of like, we're not here to just like do whatever we're told. We're here as advisors, but also as a partner. I think that's pretty much our attitude. And I think an honest conversation, you don't have to be afraid of a CEO or a CMO. You have to be there as their closest advisor in what you do, and you have to kind of like establish that relationship that makes them trust in you, and at the same time also that you listen to them, because they of course also have objectives and KPIs and all that stuff, which is extremely important. But I think it's about like creating the chemistry of a partnership and not as like we are the agency and you are the client, because if you're doing that, it was just like end up you being afraid of actually presenting the work that you believe in yourself, right?
By the way, do you have any tricks how to persuade the client that this will work or this is the best idea?
I think if the idea is good enough, it sometimes feels convincing. I think what I learned a lot about like presenting in I don't know how many years and campaigns and meetings and stuff like that is kind of remember to use their own language. So if people are coming from a place where they always refer to like I'm seeing it this way, then you need to kind of like be in that language of visualizing your idea in your language as well. And if it's somebody who's like feeling something around when they express their feedback, it's important that you play on the feelings as well. And it's really important to read your audience and understanding where they come from, and also take their position seriously and forget a little bit about your ego and how much you want to execute stuff. It needs again to kind of like their asses on the line as well. So it's really important to take their job serious as well. And if they feel uncomfortable in it, you need to comfort them. And I think how I always refer to being a creative director is always being like in risk management, because like we are basically going in there with a huge risk and trying to persuade them to take that risk, because creativity is about risk taking. So I think, again, our biggest job is actually to lower the risk for them and make them feel like they are not taking as huge of a leap as they actually are. Because the best work will always come with a risk of the unknown. I think that's important. I think like see yourself as somebody in risk management. That's a good start when you're actually presenting work.
Oh yeah, and make people not to be afraid to risk something.
Mm-hmm. That's correct.
And here comes my next question. Are you afraid of something in your career?
That's a huge question, right? And I think I am afraid of a lot of things. I'm afraid of losing, like my craft. I think I love craft, and I think like the higher up in the hierarchy you become, like the far away from your craft you become as well. I'm always been a really crafty guy, so I like being in there. I like nerding out on everything from graphic to design to film to technology. And I feel like the more time you spend in Slack or in emails, like the far away you can become from that craft. So I'm very afraid of like losing my craft, because being able to have a good craft is also being able to have a good judgmental around craft. So I think even though I'm ECD of a network, it's kind of really important for me to keep my ear to the ground and understand how is good craft and actually also executing a lot. So you would still see me if we're doing a project. And I think if you ask anybody in the network, like I'm still a very crafty guy, and just to kind of like put that into a test, like I'm always having my fingers directly into stuff. I'm never just the person who just sit and points on stuff and say like, let's do it that way. I think I'm executing, and that's a way to stay relevant within your craft. So I would say I'm afraid of losing my craft, my talent of art direction, or my ability to actually spot what is the next thing coming at us, right? So I think that's frightening.
I don't think that will ever happen to you.
Like it happens, and it happens for us all. I think it's like you can do your best to fight it, and I think it's also about like you have to do some sacrifices along the way. I think, for instance, one thing that I spend a lot of time actually thinking about is actually I feel like I'm bound to kind of like live in the city, because like the city is where the vibrations are. It's where you see new people. It's where you see new things happening and new trends popping up. And I feel like I also imagine myself having a nice house and a lovely garden and everything. But like as soon as I leave the city, I move away from all the small signals that happens in society. So I think at one point, like a huge sacrificing or not is like being in the middle of where shit happens. So I'm always there when so still can participate in the art scene and the music scene and the club scene and whatever, to make sure that I never just end in my own bubble or my own echo chamber in my own garden somewhere. So so I feel like, as much as I love the nature and I really want to have that privilege, I feel like I need to stay here to kind of make sure I don't lose my ability to see the world as a whole.
Well, at least for the next 20 years, let's say.
Yeah, hopefully if it lasts that long, right?
So if you were not working in the industry, what would you do? Would you be a gardener?
That would be nice. I actually think that's a funny story, because one of my biggest advertising childhood heroes, he is actually now a gardener and actually has the most beautiful garden in Denmark. So he kind of changed his career. He actually exited the game or the industry in the year at New Year's Eve 2000, straight up, because he said the internet came and things became looking ugly, and he was really also a crafty guy. So he kind of made his exit because of the internet looking so fucking bad at that point of time. Now the internet is looking beautiful again, but he's now writing books about his garden, and his garden is very famous. It looks like something from the southern of France, just in the middle of Denmark. So it's so it could be that I end up being a gardener like him as well. But I think if I had to leave this world, I think I would take a lot of the knowledge that I think I gained from this world and kind of take it to startup. And as you also know, I have a startup on the side, which is an m-commerce platform for developing countries. And I think that would be really, really lovely to nerd out on that, to kind of work with the developing countries to actually be better within e-commerce. I think that's really a challenge that I love being a part of, that I'm only doing from the sideline. But if I was supposed to do this, I will definitely emerge totally into that company and just move my spot to Nairobi or something like that, right?
So you would be just creative in another direction, that's all.
Yeah, I think so. I think a lot of people, creativity is something you can project to so many things, right? I think creativity is a tool. You can project it to music. You can project it to being on a stage, and all these kind of things. I think creativity is you don't have to be only creative within one field. I think creative people have the ability to take that energy and project it into new things. And I think for me, projecting creativity into a market that is not used to the form of creativity that I'm used to could be something really, really interesting. So I always love the continent of Africa, and I've been traveling there a lot. So kind of bringing my knowledge of creativity and how things are running in a good process and stuff like that to kind of develop something there. I think that would be something I would love to do.
Let's see how it happens in 20 years.
Yeah, you can call me up then, and at least it's going to be through some kind of AR classes or something like that, right? I'm just going to be a hologram standing in front of you, right?
Oh yeah, anything could happen. I can't even imagine what's going to be in 3 years. The text is emerging so fast. You never know.
It's so insane. It's so insane and so cool at the same time, right? It's kind of it's just great to be a part of what history that's going to be written now. We're so fortunate to be in that sweet spot that our generation has just seen so many things happening from being offline to being online, to be from very isolated to be a global part of the world. As I said, doing my travels. Yeah. Doing my travels in Africa, you tend to kind of put them in a position of not being in the know. They are totally up to date, because the internet is just so powerful, and as well as it's really hard for them to kind of reflect themselves into the world.
I hear church.
Yes, now it's happening. Let's hope it's a short one, right?
Just the six banks, right?
It is. I don't know how many it is. It's but I always like the church bells because it's kind of the oldest form of advertising. You know, like it's kind of like a radio ad, kind of like making you remember to go to church, right? So it's kind of like selling the church in its own like really quirky advertising way, right?
Yeah. Maybe they are the first advertisers. Who knows?
I think so. Yeah, it must be, right, in some kind of way. Yeah. Sorry for the noise though. I hope it's gonna stop in a bit.
Let's talk a little bit about something that not nobody, but not everybody is comfortable talking about. Can you tell us one of your fuck ups that you had in your work? Maybe not now, maybe in some previous careers or anywhere. Just interested.
Yeah, of course. I can definitely share one of my greatest story, and I think it's a fuck up, and at the same time it was like yeah. So when I had to enter the industry, I started out being in the belief that I was supposed to be an artist. So I went to art school and all that stuff, right? And at one point I found out how poor I was supposed to be if I continued being an artist. So my dad said maybe you need to convert into advertising, because that's the closest you can get to being creative at the same time making money.
And they are rich.
Yeah, exactly. So I said maybe that's a good idea. And the funny thing is that I have a twin brother who's
really?
yes, I have a twin brother. He looks just exactly like me, and he was also in the same belief of he wanted to be an artist. So we went to the same art school and everything. And he also took my dad's advice of actually getting into advertising. So we started out looking for our job in the advertising world, and he was pretty lucky that he got a job straight away. So and I was just like helping on production companies, like lifting equipment and stuff like that, right? And and he was just like on a roll because he was learning how to be an art director and all that stuff, and he was getting a network in the industry. And then at some point, because what happens when you get into the industry, you kind of like get that network, and when people move around, they kind of like help you on to the next job. So he got a really good offer at another agency, and when he had to swap to that other agency, he said he called me and said I have an opportunity to get you a real advertising job. And I said, oh, cool, man. That would be so amazing. So when he went into the creative director and said I'm quitting, but I know somebody who can do the same thing as I can, and just looks
And he
just like
looks
me.
exactly like me.
Yeah, exactly. So I turned up, and the creative director was just looking at me and kind of like, okay, it looks fine. You're like, here's your contract. So I got the job. Yeah. But I got the job. But the thing was, I knew nothing about it. So my brother said that he would advise me the whole first month to kind of get me up to speed. And as we got closer to the time I was supposed to start, that month turned out to be a week. And then at the end, he was just showing me around the Monday I started, and he said good luck, and then he left, right? So I was just sitting there to pretend to be as good as he was and as skilled as he was, but without knowing anything. I have no idea of how Photoshop worked at that point of time. So we just made an agreement, every time there came in a senior art director and kind of briefed me or something, I was just taking notes, and then I closed the door and called him and said how the fuck do I do this? So he helped me over phone for the first 1 or 2 months, and kind of guided me how to do the things that they believed I could. And then one evening, the creative director just decided to kind of me and her had to kind of do some work and some overtime. So she kind of took a chair and just sat next to me and said okay, we're doing this together. Okay, cool, let's do this. And she kind of directed me to do something in Photoshop. And I was just paralyzed because I didn't know how to do anything. And she just looked at me and said you don't know shit about this, right? And I was just no, I had to be honest. I have no idea of what I'm doing here. And I remember being so afraid because I hoped I was getting the opportunity to actually succeed in this job. At the same time, I was so busted, like I was caught in action of like taking a job which I couldn't do. But I think the magical part about that story is that she actually said like, I'm going to give you a chance, but you really have to ramp up and you need to learn fast. You need to fucking go at it. And from that day, I was just like working my ass off to just teach myself how to be a good art director. And that paid off. I think, like pushing yourself so hard at such a short period makes you evolve an interest for the industry and kind of like makes you hungry for actually achieving things. So I think actually one of my biggest fuck off is definitely taking a job that I was not capable of doing. So I think that's pretty cool.
There is a wise person that once told me when I was talking about my fears and the imposter syndrome and whatever I had, he told me, fake it till you make it. You don't know shit, but you're gonna learn someday, and you're gonna do it just fine. Just fake it till you make it. That works for me.
Of course, and I also think like I remember at one point I was at the creative school and giving a lecture there, and I told the story, and I remember like there was a girl who said like, that is so arrogant that you're taking a job which you're not able to do. And I was a little bit like, she was right. And I think like at one point, on one hand, it's kind of like really arrogant to be so bold and actually taking a job which you are not able to fulfill. At the same time, you need to take some chances sometimes in life. And like you said, like you need to, if it doesn't scare you, you're not going to grow in your job. And I think, again, I always like every time I made a move in this industry, it's always been to a position where I felt like, oh shit, do they really gonna like tell that I'm not able to fulfill this job like the first time? But you always, that's what creates the foundation to make you grow right in the job.
Yeah, and grow fast.
Yes.
That's right.
Yes, for sure.
Okay, enough is the work questions. I have some more global questions, let's say, but there are not so much of them. So I think we're gonna be free in like half an hour.
Cool.
But let's get to that questions because I like them a lot. Cool. When you were at DMC in Russia last year, the name of the topic was, as far as I remember, if you wanna predict the future, the best way to predict the future is to create it.
Yes.
How do you think we can create the better future now?
I think it's actually still the same thing. I think if you are part of creating the future, you're also making the rules around the future. And I think the future is like an abstract word and an abstract topic, because the future is just what we are going at all the time. It's of course locked to time, but I think using creativity and just like being curious about like how you can make it a better world is really what creates the future. And I think always having a starting point of like what you're putting your energy into and your creativity into in a way where it's like, I'm pretty sure that this is going to be a better place once this comes out or once this project has been done. And then again, like not being afraid of actually immerse yourself into technology. I think technology, a lot of people are afraid of technology. And I think I sometimes question myself when I see too much Black Mirror, am I the person who kind of like create this digital world where everybody's just like not there in the physical one? And I think, again, as long as you remember to bring in humanity into it, I think that we're going in the right direction. But at many stages, like I think the future is really kind of like disappointing, basically, because like I always imagine the future being like some place where we were like having flying cars and stuff like that, but in reality. Yeah, but in reality, what we're actually doing with the future right now is actually creating a totally mirror of this real world, but in a cloud world, a digital world. Like I'm seeing so many projects that actually just recording the world and putting it up to the crowd for us to at some point emerge up there and just almost like live a second life in that cloud, right? So I think the future, there will be people that's going to push it towards a more like inhuman place. But I think like as us in the creative industry, we need to remember to bring the human into whatever we do when we're doing something with the future, and make sure it's for the better of the world and not just to make it more lazy and easy in a way. So I think
Maybe you can predict some trends that it's gonna happen in the future.
I think again, there's a lot of things that's going to happen. I think especially within like everything is within your cell phone at the moment. It's going to be that way for the next few years until we get everything up in our glasses. I think again, like what I'm seeing a lot right now is of course machine learning and how simple devices can now read the world in a way. I'm really into technology called 6D AI. And 6D AI is basically and a kind of like an algorithm. So if you take your stupid dumb telephone here and you're turning on the camera and just like start to scan the room based on contrast and shadow and lighting, it then can predict what's in the room and make it into a 3D model.
Wow.
And yeah, that's kind of like, because like in reality, to be able to create a three-dimensional kind of like a drawing of a room or whatever, you need to have something that can measure distance, right? And you know, like a camera is like a single eye, so it can't really tell distance. But because of machine has been trained so much, it starts to kind of like recognize surfaces, shadows, stuff like that. It can even tell textures. And the more you start kind of like turn on your camera and kind of absorbing this data through pictures, the bigger the picture, the bigger the world it becomes. So we are all about to kind of like help co-creating this second world that would be in the cloud. And that can be used for a lot of things, positive things, advertising things, negative things and stuff like that. And, you know, like imagine like if a year from now, you're going to enter your home and, you know, like IKEA knocks on your phone and saying like, you know, like that dark corner you have over there, maybe you should rethink like putting up this light, you know, like, and then it can actually show it in augmented reality, right? So I think, yeah, I think the future holds a lot, and I think just the integration. I think the future is always about bringing it to the many. So all this stuff that we're seeing now happening through browsers and stuff like that, how augmented reality now works directly through a browser, it doesn't have to be in an app. I think that's also a game changer with e-commerce, how you can see the piece of clothing that you are buying on a hologram in the middle of your living room and stuff like that. It's kind of technology is helping us a lot, but it's also, of course, it needs to be balanced, right? Or else it can be to the opposite, right? So I think, yeah, I think right now a project that I'm really keen about, that I really want to do, because of course we're working with IKEA, is kind of like I want to, because the next generation of phones is going to have like a new, it's actually an old technology, but the technology is called LiDAR. And LiDAR, what that is kind of like this small sensor on the back of your phone that sends out lasers, kind of like laser beams, and then it gets them back again. It's kind of like an technology that was developed by NASA to kind of like measure distance when they are on moon landings and stuff like that. So it's really old, but it's actually getting into phones now. And what that can do is it can actually create this kind of like copy paste function. So do you remember the kind of like when you're moving into a new apartment and you have a really heavy couch and you are struggling around, moving it around to every room, and it's really, really heavy and your back's getting sore? With this new technology, you can basically point your camera at the couch and it's going to recognize what the couch is, and then you can superimpose it around in your room. So you don't have to lift the couch to see if it fits in the other end of the room.
That's
so kind
amazing.
Of like, yeah, so basically kind of like working on a prototype to kind of like maybe do a copy paste in reality. I think that would be fucking cool. Because like, you know, how going to a store maybe and then kind of like scan a product and then bring it home and place it in your apartment. You know, so you don't have to buy it before actually doing it. I think that's pretty clever as well. So
you can print something on 3D and also put it in your house.
yeah, for sure. But I think sometimes it's about like, one of the best things how to not like overconsume is actually being completely sure that what you're buying is the right thing. And I think sometimes we tend to buy things which we are a little bit insecure if we actually want or not, but and sometimes they then never get returned. I think this way is actually a way to have a picture of it in 3D and kind of like bring it home to see if it actually fits your home before even buying it, right? I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah,
We'll see how it goes.
Yeah, for sure. Probably happen fast.
I have the last question for you. As long as you're wearing this yellow magical glasses,
Yeah.
that's making all of your vision pretty bright and shiny. Maybe you can say something inspiring through your yellow glasses to all the people who are listening to us right now.
Oh,
some advice.
That's fucking huge. I'm really a reflecting kind of guy. So just like, it's really, really hard to just give a great advice. But I think again, I think it's just about, it's time to bring the positivity back. I think it's time to spread that positivity to the people you are around and to your creative teams. And it's time to kind of like look ahead and make sure that we are using this window of opportunity to actually create something better. So I guess that must be my advice and like my final 2 cents in this conversation, to make sure that we are looking ahead and that we're actually using creativity to do that as well.
Well, thank you so much, Morten. Thank you for spending this Friday with us, and thank you for sharing your peace of mind, which is creative and inspiring and really wonderful. It was a pleasure to talk to you, and I hope to see you soon somewhere in this world, traveling.
Yeah. Thank you so much. It was so nice to see you again, and I actually hope to come back to Russia in the fall if everything opens up. I have a few arrangements there already, and I'm really looking forward to that. Russia is so much on the move, it's on the rise, and it's like things are happening there, as we talked about earlier. So I'm really interested in kind of like coming back and kind of like get a feeling of the creative scene there as well. So I will see you in person soon and not in the second world.
Perfect. See you in September or
October, probably October, but soon, right?
Yeah, that's soon. Thank
Cool.
you. Have a nice weekend.
Likewise. See you soon. Bye.
Bye. And we're done.
Perfect. Did it work?